Hello, everyone. Today we are joined by Minneapolis Councilwoman Alondra Cano. She represents Ward 9, which is located in the heart of Minneapolis and is the most diverse in the city. Ward 9 has the largest American Indian and Latino populations, a growing East African community, and an active LGBTQIA community. We know that communities of color have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, and we are talking with Councilwoman Cano today to learn more about the unique challenges facing the Latinx community. Councilwoman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, y buenos días. Good morning.
Buenos días. Let's start there. Can you just talk to us about what you're seeing in your ward and hearing across the community about how COVID-19 is affecting the Latinx community?
So thank you for inviting me to have this important conversation and to make sure that all Minnesotans can participate in this dialogue. You know, in Ward 9, we're about 30,000 people, and it's South Minneapolis. So places you might recognize are Global Market, Powderhorn Park, Mercado Central. And in that population itself, out of the 30,000 people, about 35% of them are Latino descent or Latino heritage people with what we call mixed immigration status. And so when we say mixed immigration status, it typically means that there will be a broad range of people within that framework that might have a social security number, might have a temporary visa to be here visiting, might have a work permit, or might not have any type of regularized immigration status. And all of that stems and is related to our immigration system, which many of us would say is still broken and outdated and does not meet our country's true economic both needs and potential. So in a way, we're kind of holding each other back when we don't fix that immigration system. So within that community, because it's such a significant and robust community in Minneapolis and in Minnesota, it is projected to be the largest minority majority in the state in the coming years due to our young population. The Latino community itself is pretty young in terms of, you know, we have folks who are sort of in the high school age range, college, and in mid-20s, and a lot of those folks are having children, and so that we anticipate that they will age into a growth level that will represent the largest ethnic minority in the state. So it is very important for us at the city to pay attention to that community, to be in touch with their needs and their realities. And when COVID-19 hit, we knew, just as you and I were discussing before, that there was a huge information gap with that community, particularly because of the inequities around access to technology. And so a lot of families don't have a fast, reliable, or affordable internet connection at home, or a device, a laptop, a desktop, a smartphone that can readily access those information mechanisms. And then we also knew that there would be a language barrier. So a lot of folks are still, you know, Spanish is their primary language, and maybe their children are bilingual by now, but the parents who are still in charge of a lot of decisions would be left out. And so we started to quickly reach out to that community, both through a Spanish language radio program that the city of Minneapolis has with La Raza Radio. It's 1400 AM for any of you who are trying to brush up on your Spanish skills. You can turn it on and listen in. And so it's every Tuesday at 2 p.m. And we wanted to make sure that our community was being, number one, just connected with around this topic, providing information about what was going on, what was this global pandemic about. And we also began to hear quite quickly that this community was being left behind and left out of many of the cash assistance and resources that were coming forward by the federal government and by the state government. And a lot of that connects to the fact that there's still not a recognition that a lot of these community members are workers, active workers in our economy, that they pay taxes and contribute to our tax base readily and handily every day by purchasing goods and products, purchasing homes, cars, shopping in our local economy, and certainly keeping our schools open. And so we have sort of this mismatch between what is reality of how the community and our social fabric actually works and sort of the rules that govern that society. And so we did see quite quickly that many of our families, because of their mixed immigration status, were being left out of federal stimulus payments or checks from any state assistance that might support rent payments or mortgage payments or general support. And so we started to quickly work around that. And luckily, Mayor Fry, who is our strong leader at the city of Minneapolis during this time, was open enough and I think connected enough, relevant enough to understand that this was a really important gap to fill and that government shouldn't be duplicative, that we should be strategic and really helping each other ensure that the social fabric that we've worked so hard to weave over the last decades could really sustain this global pandemic. And so the city was able to put together a program that would provide cash assistance to help people with rent payments and utility payments. And we put it together with many Latino leaders and many Latino grass tops leaders who informed the framework of the program to make sure that we had the intended impact and outcome. So we did receive more than 8,000 applications from just Minneapolis residents, because it's a Minneapolis program. And a large bulk of those applicants were Spanish speakers. And so now we're in the process of really making sure that we're prioritizing the folks who have not been able to get any type of aid and ensuring that we can issue out that money in a speedy way, but also in a responsible way.
And what is the situation now? It sounds like adjustments were made. Some relief is taking place. What more might be needed from the state or the federal government or other leaders in this community at this moment?
I appreciate that question because I don't often get that asked from other government leaders. And I think that in whatever room we've been in or that I've been in, for example, I've hosted now a regular Latino COVID-19 response meeting. And so we've been meeting every Monday for an hour and a half to discuss issues that relate to our community and their specific barriers and realities in relationship to COVID-19 response. And steadily in those phone calls or virtual meetings, and I think we've had about 6 or 7 now, we see that consistency in messaging is key. And being able to convey a clear, unified message about this is a global pandemic and it's real. People are dying and we need to protect ourselves and be responsible community members by wearing masks and practicing social distancing. And really being able to activate Spanish language media as much as possible and being able to get our message out in video forms, in flyers or graphics, and not rely so much on lengthy written documents so that people with all kinds of literacy levels within the Latino community can engage with that information and can imbibe it and integrate it into their life. And I think so we're really pushing for a consistent sort of marketing campaign on just raising awareness about the importance of paying attention to what's happening, responding to some of these government directives, whether they're stay-at-home orders or stay-safe orders, or potentially if Minneapolis approves a mandatory requirement to wear a mask when you're outside. All of those things we're trying to push together as a diverse community by asking, the governor's office to have a Spanish language radio program, by ensuring that, at the city of Minneapolis, we have flyers and posters in Spanish that can be distributed along Lake Street. So lately, I think now, most recently, we were talking about the need for PPE equipment for low-wage workers in Mexican or Latino grocery stores, which are essential services to our community, in delis and shops, because the square footage of those physical businesses are so small that sometimes you can't really adhere to or honor the physical distancing rules. And the capacity to sort of, I guess, monitor that is limited within the business owner's realm. And so this is why wearing masks is even more important. And so we're looking at that as a human rights issue, in that if a low-wage worker has to go to work because they need to pay the bills, and they need to, and you know, interestingly enough, that pressure for them to go to work to pay bills is actually part of how we sustain our economy and how we sustain things to keep moving on a regular schedule. And if that person doesn't have money to buy a mask or doesn't know where to get a good mask, that either the city's able to provide one or that the business owner is able to provide one. And so that's the part we're zeroing in now, is just making sure that now as businesses are reopening and we're getting ready for folks to kind of go back into the fold, that we're really being proactive about making sure that we're reaching out to those Spanish-speaking business owners, those Latino entrepreneurs, and doing as much as we can to ensure that they're able to provide PPE or support for their employees, so that those employees feel good about going back to work, they feel safe, and that they're in turn keeping our community safe as more people start to shop and to buy and to engage, which are all things we need to keep a healthy economy going. And so I think our job is really about, again, you know, going back to this issue of communications and proactive messaging, education and awareness, is making sure how can we all work together, greater MSP, the City of Minneapolis, the Governor's Office, to ensure that there is no question or no stone left unturned in the Latino community when it comes to Spanish-speaking communications about the pandemic and what we can all do.
Well, let's make the beginning of that dialogue. And let's get to work. One of the things we know, this crisis is not hitting people and communities equally. And so we're going to have to target our interventions to be most effective. Thanks for everything you're doing and the leadership that the city is offering. This is an incredibly difficult time, and we're all in uncharted waters. So let's work together to figure this out. All right. Thank you so much, Councilwoman.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope that we can continue to work together on this topic. And for all the business leaders and advocates who might see this show, thank you for keeping the Latino community in mind and for advocating for them. And anytime you need to lean on someone to talk about some of these issues, don't feel afraid to reach out to me. Peter has my info, and I'd be happy to have another Zoom conversation.
All right, we'll help connect you to additional resources online. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter, for your leadership.